Elara was a quiet girl who lived in a small cottage. Her cottage sat right at the edge of a great old forest. The forest was called the Whispering Woods. The people in the nearby village were afraid of the woods. They told stories of strange sounds and shadows that moved between the trees. They said the wind and the leaves whispered secrets that could drive a person mad, but Elara was not afraid. She was curious. She spent her days gathering herbs and flowers from the meadows that bordered the forest, her heart always wondering about the mysteries that lay just beyond the first line of ancient oaks and weeping willows. She was an herbalist, you see. She knew the names of all the plants that grew in the sun. She knew which ones could soothe a fever and which ones could mend a broken heart. Her hands were often stained with the green of crushed leaves and the bright colors of flower petals. While the villagers stayed away telling their fearful tales, Elara would sit on her porch swing in the evenings. She would listen to the soft murmurs of the forest. To her they did not sound frightening at all. They sounded like a gentle song, a lullaby sung by the world itself, promising wonder and magic to anyone brave enough to listen closely. Elara's cottage was a place of peace. Jars of dried herbs lined her shelves, each one labeled in her neat, careful handwriting. The air inside always smelled of lavender and chamomile and rich, dark earth. She lived a simple life, a life connected to the turning of the seasons and the slow, steady rhythm of the natural world. Still, a part of her yearned for something more. She felt a pull toward the deep green heart of the Whispering Woods, a place no one from the village had dared to enter for as long as anyone could remember. She felt as though the forest was waiting for her, holding a secret meant only for her to discover. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the land, Elara felt the pull more strongly than ever before. It was a gentle tug on her spirit, like a soft thread leading her toward the ancient trees. The whispers from the woods seemed to call her name, not in a scary way but in a way that felt like coming home. She put down the basket of wildflowers she had been arranging and took a deep breath. She knew, with a certainty that filled her entire being, that her life was about to change. She was ready to step into the world of magic she had only ever dreamed about. It was on a day just like any other that the magic finally found her. Elara was walking along the forest's edge, searching for rare moon-petal flowers that only bloomed in the twilight. The air was still and quiet, filled with the sweet scent of damp earth and pine. As she pushed aside a curtain of hanging moss, she saw it. There, nestled among the roots of a giant gnarled tree, was a soft, warm glow. It was an ember, but not like any ember from a fire. This one pulsed with a gentle light, its colors shifting slowly from a deep, soothing blue to a bright, hopeful gold, and then to a soft, loving rose. Elara knelt down, her heart thumping like a drum. She had never seen anything so beautiful or so strange. The ember was warm to the touch, but it did not burn. It felt alive, humming with a quiet energy that seemed to flow right into her fingertips. As she held it in her palm, a voice echoed in her mind. It was not a sound she heard with her ears, but a thought she felt with her whole soul. "Return me," it whispered, the voice like the rustling of 1,000 leaves in a gentle breeze. "Return me to the hearth. The forest is fading, it needs its heart." Elara looked around, but she was completely alone. The voice came from the ember itself. The word hearth stirred something deep within her memory. It was a name from an old legend, a story the village elders sometimes told to frighten children. The hearth was said to be the very heart of the Whispering Woods, an ancient tree that gave the forest its life and its magic. But the legend said the hearth had gone dark centuries ago, and with it, the forest's vibrant spirit. The ember in her hand glowed a little brighter, as if in response to her thoughts. It seemed to be pleading with her, trusting her with this impossible and incredibly important task. She knew, without a doubt, that this was the secret the woods had been keeping for her. With the glowing ember cupped carefully in her hands, Elara made a decision. The fear that kept the villagers away felt small and distant now, replaced by a sense of purpose that made her feel taller and braver than she had ever felt before. She would not let the forest fade away. She would take the ember to the hearth, wherever it was. The whispers of the woods no longer sounded like a mystery. They sounded like a guide. Holding the ember close to her chest, she took her first step into the deep, enchanting shadows of the Whispering Woods, leaving her simple life behind for an adventure she was born to undertake. The moment Elara stepped under the thick canopy of the Whispering Woods, the world changed. The light of the setting sun was replaced by a soft, green-tinted twilight, filtered through a ceiling of leaves so dense it was like being underwater. The air grew cooler and smelled of ancient trees and blooming night flowers she had never seen before. At first, she felt a flicker of fear, a small voice telling her to turn back, but the ember in her hands pulsed with a steady, reassuring warmth. It cast a gentle light around her, pushing back the darkest of the shadows and showing her a faint winding path that was invisible to any other eye. Her journey was filled with wonders she could have never imagined. She saw streams where the water sparkled with floating specks of light, like liquid stars. She walked through groves of mushrooms that glowed with a soft blue luminescence, lighting her way through the darkest parts of the forest. The whispers of the woods became clearer now. They guided her, telling her when to turn left at a moss-covered stone or when to wait for a grumpy, badger-like creature to cross her path. The ember was her compass and her shield, its light flaring brightly to warn away shadowy beasts with glowing eyes that watched her from the undergrowth. She met the forest's inhabitants, the creatures of legend the villagers spoke of in hushed tones, but they were not monsters. She saw tiny, winged sprites with laughter like tinkling bells, who peeked at her from behind flowers before darting away. She shared a piece of her bread with a wise old fox who had fur the color of autumn leaves and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. He simply nodded at the ember in her hands and then pointed his nose deeper into the woods, showing her the way forward. The forest was not evil. It was just wild and ancient, and it was slowly dying without its heart. As she traveled deeper, she saw signs of the forest's sickness. The trees drooped, their leaves turning a dull, lifeless brown. The sparkling streams grew murky in places and the air felt heavy and sad. The ember's light seemed to be the only truly vibrant thing in a world that was slowly losing its color. This sight filled Elara with a renewed determination. She was not just returning a magical object, she was carrying the hope of the entire forest in her hands. She walked with a steady pace, her quiet courage growing with every step, ready to face whatever lay ahead to save this beautiful magical world. Just as she reached a clearing where the trees were black and twisted as if burned from the inside out, a figure stepped out from the shadows. He was a tall man dressed in dark robes, his face pale and his eyes burning with a hungry greed. This was Malakor, a sorcerer who had been drawn to the forest's fading magic, hoping to claim it for himself. He had felt the ember's power the moment Elara entered the woods, and he had been hunting her ever since. "Give me the heart!" he hissed, his voice like the grating of stone on stone. "A simple girl like you has no use for such power. I will use it to become a king." Elara clutched the ember tightly. She could feel its light flicker with fear, or perhaps with anger. Malakor raised a hand and dark, thorny vines erupted from the ground, trying to ensnare her. But Elara was no longer just a simple herbalist. Her journey through the woods had made her brave. The ember pulsed in her hands and a shield of golden light flared around her, turning the thorny vines to ash. "This power does not belong to you," she said, her voice clear and strong, echoing through the dead clearing. "It belongs to the forest. It is not for ruling but for living." In the center of the clearing stood a colossal, ancient tree. Its bark was gray and cracked and its branches were bare and lifeless. This was the Hearth. Elara knew what she had to do. Ignoring Malakor's furious shouts, she ran toward the ancient tree. The sorcerer hurled bolts of dark energy at her, but she dodged them, protected by the ember's gentle light. She reached the base of the great tree and saw a hollow in its trunk, a space shaped exactly like the ember she held. It was a perfect fit, a lock waiting for its key. She had to make a choice, use the ember's power to fight Malakor, or use it to heal the forest. Without hesitation, she chose the forest. She placed the glowing ember into the hollow of the ancient tree. The moment it touched the wood, a wave of brilliant warm light exploded outward, knocking Malakor off his feet. The light surged through the roots and up the trunk of the hearth, spreading through its branches like a fast-blooming flower. Green leaves sprouted on every twig and the entire forest seemed to take a deep, contented breath. The magic was restored. Malakor, his dark power broken by the pure life force, vanished into the shadows. Elara, now bathed in the tree's gentle glow, felt the forest's gratitude. She was no longer just Elara the herbalist. She was Elara, the guardian of the Whispering Woods, her life forever intertwined with its magic.